In the harsh Dakota territory of 1878, where blood-soaked soil marked boundaries between worlds, a black widow named Eliza Freeman homesteaded alone between white settlements and Lakota lands. When a blizzard delivered a wounded Lakota hunter to her doorstep, Eliza made a choice that would pit railroad conspirators against tribal warriors, with her cabin caught in the crossfire. Having already lost her husband to war and her freedom to slavery, Eliza now faced something far more dangerous than isolation: the possibility that saving one life might cost her everything. Eliza Freeman stood alone on her porch, rifle steady in her hands despite her exhaustion, facing 20 Lakota warriors on horseback who surrounded her small homestead. Behind her lay the unconscious form of Charging Hawk, the man she'd spent all night saving from a bullet wound and fever. The warriors' leader, Running Wolf, dismounted and approached, war paint fresh on his face. "You have bewitched my brother," he said in broken English. "Now you will die for it." A cavalry bugle sounded in the distance. Both Eliza and the warriors froze. "They're coming to kill all of you," Eliza said quietly. "And me too, if they see us together." Running Wolf's eyes narrowed. "Then we take you with us." "No," Eliza stepped forward. "I have another way. But you'll have to trust me." She met Running Wolf's gaze. "The same way your brother did." The Dakota Territory stretched harsh and unforgiving in 1878, a place where boundaries blurred between white settlements and Lakota land. Eliza's cabin sat in that dangerous middle ground. 4 years since the war's end, 6 since her husband's death, 10 since they'd fled north from slavery. The settlers in the nearest town avoided her. A black woman living alone meant trouble to them. Her knowledge of herbs and medicine only fed their whispers of witchcraft. That suited Eliza fine. Solitude was safer than company. She kept her husband James's pocket watch in her apron pocket. The weight of it against her hip reminded her of promises made, land of their own, freedom no one could take. The deed sat folded in a tin box beneath the floorboards, proof that this small piece of America belonged to her. Winter came early that year. The first blizzard howled across the plains like a wounded animal. Snow piled against Eliza's cabin walls as she stoked the fire higher. The wind carried something else that night, a moan, human, not animal. Eliza wrapped herself in James's old army coat and stepped into the storm. 20 paces from her door, a dark shape lay half buried in snowdrift. A man, not white. His braided hair frosted with ice. Blood stained the snow beneath him. Dragging him inside nearly broke her back. He weighed twice what she did, all muscle and sinew. His breathing came shallow. A bullet hole punctured his side, the flesh around it burning with infection. Eliza recognized the signs. She'd seen enough wounded soldiers during the war to know death's approach. She worked through the night, heating water, extracting the bullet with steady hands, grinding herbs into poultice. His fever burned so hot she thought it might consume them both. Near dawn, hoofbeats approached. Eliza froze. She draped a quilt over the man's unconscious form before boots crunched across her porch. 3 sharp knocks rattled her door. Captain Reynolds stood flanked by 2 soldiers, their blue uniforms stark against the snow. His eyes swept the cabin's interior. "Ma'am, there's an Indian about. Attacked a settler yesterday. Dangerous criminal. Seen anything unusual?" Eliza kept her face still as stone. "Just the storm, Captain." Reynolds stepped forward without invitation. His gaze lingered on her herbs hanging from the ceiling beams. The smell of her medicines filled the small space. "Your treatments? Still practicing them?" "For myself only." Reynolds nodded toward the quilt-covered bench along the wall. "What's that?" "Laundry, waiting for the storm to break." One of the soldiers coughed. Reynolds studied Eliza's face before nodding. "We'll be patrolling. Any sign of trouble, fire a shot. We'll come." The door closed behind them. Eliza counted 30 breaths before checking on her patient. His eyes had opened, dark, alert, watching her. "Why did you lie?" His English carried only slight accent. Eliza stepped back. "You speak their language, better than they speak mine. He tried to sit up, grimaced. Don't move. The bullet missed your lung. Barely. He settled back. They will return. When they do, you will be in danger. Eliza poured water into a cup, held it to his lips. I was born in danger. The man studied her face as he drank. I am Charging Hawk. Eliza Freeman. Freeman. He spoke the name with understanding. You were a slave. I was never a slave. I was enslaved. There's difference. Days passed. Charging Hawk's fever broke. He told Eliza about the settler who'd shot him. No farmer but a railroad man, mapping land guaranteed to the Lakota by treaty. Land that included her homestead, though she held legal deed. One morning, Eliza found survey stakes driven into frozen ground behind her cabin. Proof that Charging Hawk spoke truth. The railroad wanted everything. Lakota hunting grounds, her small farm. Men like Reynolds would help them take it. Charging Hawk watched her burn the stakes in her stove. My people will fight. They'll lose, Eliza said, like we did. We have not lost yet. As he healed, they shared stories by firelight. His wife lost to smallpox, her husband to war. He taught her Lakota words for herbs she'd learned from her grandmother. She showed him how to stitch wounds as she'd done for Union soldiers. One evening, Eliza walked to the stream for water. Voices carried on cold air from beyond the tree line. She crept closer. Captain Reynolds stood with two men in expensive coats. Railroad men. The attack is arranged for tomorrow. Some of my men will dress as Indians. Hit the Miller homestead hard. Once news spreads, we'll have all the justification we need. What about the black woman? One asked. Leave her to me. No one will miss her. Eliza slipped away. When she returned, Charging Hawk saw her face and understood. Though still weak, he dressed to leave. I must warn my people. Eliza gave him pemmican she'd traded for last autumn. Your brother, the war chief, will he listen? Running Wolf sees enemies everywhere, but he will hear me. Charging Hawk paused at the door, removed something from around his neck. A small leather pouch strung on sinew cord. For protection, he said, placing it in her palm. The weight of it felt like James's watch, like promise. Go straight north, she said. Reynolds patrols east toward town. Before dawn, Eliza woke to stillness. Something had changed in the air. She reached for her rifle before stepping outside. 20 mounted warriors surrounded her cabin. At their center, Running Wolf sat tall on his pinto stallion, his face painted for war. Behind her, inside the cabin, lay the evidence of Charging Hawk's stay. The medicine pouch he'd given her hung from her neck, visible above her collar. For the first time since James died, Eliza felt true fear. The bugle call grew louder. Eliza made her decision fast. Hide your warriors in the trees beyond my property line. I'll handle the soldiers. Running Wolf's face hardened with suspicion. Why would you protect us? I'm not protecting you. I'm protecting your brother's secret. She touched the medicine pouch at her throat. And my own. The warriors scattered like smoke into the tree line as Captain Reynolds and 4 soldiers rode into view. Reynolds dismounted, his boots heavy on the packed earth. Miss Freeman, trouble sleeping? Just enjoying the morning air, Captain. Eliza kept her rifle visible but lowered. Reynolds nodded toward her cabin. Mind if we look inside? Reports of Indian raiders nearby. The cabin held evidence of Charging Hawk's stay. Bloodied bandages she hadn't burned yet. Herbs crushed for poultice. His scent still lingered on the blankets. Since when does the army need permission to do as it pleases? Reynolds smiled without warmth. His men pushed past her, boots tracking mud across her swept floor. They overturned her bedding, opened her storage chest. One soldier picked up her mortar and pestle, sniffed at the residue. What's this? Reynolds lifted the medicine pouch from her neck, breaking the cord with a sharp tug. Trinket I traded for. Supposed to ward off evil spirits. She kept her voice level despite the violation. Doesn't work too well. Reynolds turned the pouch over in his palm, then pocketed it. Before he could speak, a gunshot cracked the morning stillness. Then another. Screams carried from the direction of the Miller homestead. "Captain!" A soldier burst through the door. "Indian attack at the northeast settlement." Reynolds's eyes never left Eliza's face. "Private Williams, stay here with Miss Freeman. She's not to leave until I return." The soldiers mounted quickly, leaving the youngest behind. Private Williams stood awkwardly with his rifle, barely old enough to grow proper whiskers. His hands trembled slightly. The moment the others disappeared from view, shadows detached from the tree line. Running Wolf and 3 warriors emerged, weapons ready. Private Williams raised his rifle with panicked eyes. "Don't!" Eliza stepped between them. "They won't hurt you unless you give them reason." "My orders." "Your orders come from a man staging an attack on innocent people." Williams's rifle barrel wavered. "What do you mean?" "The raid happening right now? White men painted as Indians. I heard Reynolds planning it yesterday." Running Wolf spoke in harsh Lakota. One warrior translated for him. "He says you lie to save yourself." Eliza turned to the warrior. "Ask him why his brother was shot. Ask what he was hunting when it happened." The exchange in Lakota grew heated. Finally, the translator nodded. "The land surveyors. They marked territory protected by treaty." Williams lowered his rifle slightly. "What land surveyors?" "Railroad men," Eliza said. "They want Lakota hunting grounds, and my homestead sits in their way." Williams' young face contorted with confusion. "But Captain Reynolds' army. Why would he help railroad men?" "That's what I need to find out." Eliza watched understanding dawn on the boy's face. "Is he really a captain, Williams?" Williams looked down. "He has papers, orders, but what? I've never seen him report to anyone. And his uniform, the insignia is wrong." Running Wolf stepped forward, making Williams flinch, but the Lakota leader only pointed north, speaking rapidly. The translator nodded. "More soldiers coming, from the fort." "Those will be real soldiers," Williams said, responding to the attack. Eliza made her decision. "Williams, you have a choice. Ride to the fort. Tell them what's happening, or come with us." The boy looked between Eliza and the warriors. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "They'll hang me if I desert. They'll hang you if Reynolds succeeds and you knew the truth." Williams nodded once. "I'll need my horse." Within minutes, they split up. Williams rode for the fort. Eliza accompanied Running Wolf and his warriors toward Lakota territory. The medicine pouch that Reynolds had taken felt like a brand on her skin. Its absence marked betrayal. They traveled through creek beds to mask their trail. By midday, they reached a sheltered valley where more Lakota had made camp. Women looked up from their work. Children stopped their play, all eyes fixed on the black woman riding among their warriors. Charging Hawk emerged from a hide tent, moving gingerly but upright. Relief washed across his face at the sight of Eliza, then concern as he noted the broken cord at her neck. "Reynolds," she said. "He took it." Charging Hawk moved closer, spoke soft words in Lakota. Running Wolf responded sharply, gesturing toward Eliza. "My brother doesn't trust your presence here," Charging Hawk translated. "He believes you may lead enemies to us. I didn't come here by choice. Yet you warned us of the false raid." Eliza surveyed the camp. Women watched her warily as they continued their work, children half hidden behind tent flaps. These people lived with constant threat, just as she had on the plantation, just as she had during the war, nursing broken men back to health, or easing their passage into death. "My husband was a soldier," she said. "Union. He had friends at the fort. If Reynolds isn't real army, there will be records. Proof." Charging Hawk translated. Running Wolf responded with a wave of dismissal. "He says white men's papers mean nothing. They make promises on paper, then break them." "Then let me get proof that even Lakota can understand." Eliza straightened her spine. "Let me into the fort." The camp erupted in argument. Eliza watched Charging Hawk defend her plan while Running Wolf countered every point. Finally, Charging Hawk turned to her. "It's too dangerous. Reynolds will look for you there. Reynolds thinks I'm a simple Negro woman, too frightened to leave my cabin." She pulled James's watch from her pocket. The gold gleamed in the sunlight. "My husband saved an officer's life at Gettysburg. That man commands the Dakota Territory fort now. If I can reach him, show him this watch, he'll listen." Night fell over the Lakota camp. A small fire burned as Eliza sat with Charging Hawk outside his tent. He winced as he shifted position. "Your wound reopened," she said. "It will heal." Eliza mixed herbs with fat in a small bowl. "Remove your shirt." He complied without argument. The wound looked angry, but not infected. Her fingers worked the poultice into place, his skin warm beneath her touch. For a moment, the only sound was their breathing and the soft crackle of the fire. "Why did you save me?" he asked. Eliza's hands stilled. "Why did you not kill me this morning?" Charging Hawk smiled faintly. "Perhaps we both recognize something in each other." "What's that?" "People who have lost much but still stand." Eliza finished her work and wiped her hands on a cloth. "If I reach the fort, find proof of Reynolds's deception, what then? Your people and mine have both learned not to trust promises. One truth at a time." Charging Hawk covered her hand with his. First survival, then justice. The touch lingered between them, unexpected warmth in cold country. In the distance, Running Wolf watched with narrowed eyes. By morning, Eliza had convinced the brothers. She would infiltrate the fort as a laundress. Many Negro women found such work after the war. She would search the records room for proof of Reynolds's true identity and purpose. What she didn't tell them was her other plan. The deed to her land remained hidden beneath her cabin floor. If Reynolds was working for the railroad, that deed would be his true target. He would return to her homestead to find it. Running Wolf provided her with a horse. His face remained suspicious, but he spoke words that Charging Hawk translated. "If you betray us, there is nowhere far enough to hide." Eliza mounted the horse. "Tell your brother I know that truth better than most." The morning sun crested the hills as she rode toward Fort Laramie. Behind her, Charging Hawk raised a hand in farewell. Before her lay danger, but also possibility. The medicine pouch's absence felt like a wound against her skin. She would reclaim it, along with her land, along with her right to exist in this harsh, beautiful country. The fort's walls appeared on the horizon. American flags snapped in the wind, a place built to protect some people by controlling others. Eliza straightened her back, fixed her headscarf, lowered her eyes to the appropriate humility expected from women of her color. She would enter as someone invisible. She would leave with the truth. Fort Laramie accepted Eliza without question. A black woman seeking laundry work raised no suspicions. The fort's laundress had fallen ill 3 days prior. Providence or luck, Eliza couldn't tell which. She kept her eyes down, hands busy, ears open. The officers' quarters yielded nothing useful in her first 2 days. On the third morning, she entered the records office while delivering clean shirts. The clerk stepped out for coffee. Eliza moved quickly through the files. No record of Captain Reynolds among active officers. She dug deeper, found a letter mentioning railroad acquisitions, territory surveys. A name caught her eye. James Freeman, her husband. The door opened behind her. Reynolds stood in the threshold. His smile turned her blood cold. "I wondered when you'd appear." Eliza backed away. Reynolds closed the door behind him, removed his gloves, finger by finger. "Smart woman. Too smart for your own good." "I don't know what you mean, sir." She clutched a shirt to her chest, played the role expected of her. Reynolds lifted a familiar object from his coat pocket. The medicine pouch. He placed it on the desk between them. "Found your Indian friend yet? Or did they kill you after getting what they needed?" "I serve the laundress here. Nothing more." "No." Reynolds circled the desk. "You served Union soldiers, as a nurse. I remember you. The revelation hit her like ice water. Eliza kept her expression neutral, though her mind raced. Had they met during the war? She'd tended hundreds of wounded men. Some patients died under your care, Reynolds continued, including one who carried papers, land deeds, railroad contracts, a man named James Freeman. Understanding dawned like a brutal sunrise. James hadn't died from battle wounds. This man had killed him, stolen what was theirs. You murdered my husband. Reynolds smiled. Murder is a harsh word for battlefield necessity. Eliza lunged for the door. Reynolds caught her arm, twisted it behind her back. I've spent years building this operation, not about to let a Negro widow ruin it. He pressed his mouth close to her ear. Too bad about your cabin catching fire. Such dangerous country for a woman alone. Horror washed through her. The deed hidden beneath her floorboards, James's watch, her only possessions of value, consumed by flames. Guards responded to Reynolds' call. She found herself locked in a storage shed at the fort's edge. Night fell cold and absolute. Eliza worked the ropes, binding her wrists against a rusty nail protruding from the wall. Blood slicked her efforts. Pain became distant, secondary to purpose. The rope gave way near midnight. She pried at the wooden slats with bleeding fingers. A sudden commotion arose from the fort yard. Shouts, running feet, gunfire. The door splintered open. Running Wolf stood silhouetted against torchlight. 5 warriors behind him. He cut her bonds with a single knife stroke. We watch fort, he said in halting English. See you taken. They escaped in the confusion. Reynolds would follow. Eliza knew this as surely as she knew her own name. He couldn't afford to let her live with what she'd discovered. They rode hard through the night, reached Lakota camp before dawn. Charging Hawk waited, his face taut with concern. He grabbed her hands, saw the blood and rope burns, and his expression darkened. What did they do to you? Reynolds. She could barely form words through parched lips. He killed James, stole our land deed. Now he's burned my cabin. Running Wolf spoke rapidly in Lakota. Charging Hawk listened, then turned to Eliza. My brother wants to kill all soldiers now. Take revenge. Eliza shook her head. Number. That's what Reynolds wants. Excuse to break the treaty. What choice do we have? Wait for them to slaughter us. There's another way. Eliza steadied herself. The territorial governor, in Cheyenne. With proof of Reynolds's crimes, we can stop this. Running Wolf argued furiously in Lakota. Charging Hawk translated. My brother says white justice is no justice for Lakota. Then don't do it for justice, Eliza replied. Do it for survival. Morning brought decision. They would attempt to reach the territorial governor. 10 warriors would escort them through mountain passes. The rest would defend the camp if soldiers came. They departed at first light. Eliza rode beside Charging Hawk, his wound still slowing him. Behind them, Running Wolf led the warrior escort. Mountains rose before them like ancient guardians, indifferent to human struggles. Private Williams caught up with them near midday, riding hard, his uniform torn, face streaked with dirt. Reynolds knows where you're headed, he gasped. Sent soldiers to cut you off at Thompson's Pass. How many? Charging Hawk asked. 20, maybe more. Running Wolf conferred with his warriors. One pointed to a narrow trail rising steeply into the hills. Old path, Williams translated. Dangerous, but faster. They ascended single file through pine forest. Rotten snow clung to north-facing slopes. Rocks clattered down steep inclines. Eliza's hands blistered on the reins. The horse beneath her struggled for footing on the treacherous path. Reynolds found them anyway. Rifle fire erupted from the ridge above. A warrior fell, then another. Eliza slid from her horse, took cover behind boulders with Charging Hawk and Williams. They have high ground, Williams said. We're trapped. Running Wolf signaled his remaining warriors. They melted into the forest, moving to flank the soldiers. More shots, screams. The battle turned desperate. Williams raised his rifle to return fire. A bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Eliza crawled to his side, applied pressure to the wound. Blood leaked between her fingers. "Why?" Williams gasped. "Why help me?" Eliza tore strips from her petticoat for bandages. "Same reason I helped Charging Hawk. We're all caught in someone else's war." Reynolds' voice carried from above. "Miss Freeman, surrender now and I'll spare the boy." She met Charging Hawk's eyes. Shared understanding passed between them. "Williams needs a doctor," she called. "Let him go and I'll surrender." "All of you surrender. That's the only deal." Williams clutched Eliza's arm with his good hand. "Don't. He'll kill you all." "I know." Eliza checked his wound. The bleeding had slowed. "But you might live." Williams shook his head. "Worth nothing if I live as a coward." A new sound rose over the mountain. War cries, hoofbeats. Dozens of riders appeared on the opposite ridge. Charging Hawk smiled. "My people come." The battle shifted with reinforcements. Reynolds's men retreated uphill. Gunfire thinned. Eliza tended Williams as best she could with limited supplies. The young soldier's face had gone gray. His pulse fluttered beneath her fingertips. "Never killed anyone," he whispered. "Joined army to make my mother proud." "You will make her proud," Eliza said, "by surviving." The shooting stopped. Running Wolf approached with warriors dragging a captive. Reynolds. Blood streaked his face from a head wound. His hands bound before him. "Bring him," Running Wolf ordered in English. They carried Williams down to a clearing where horses waited. Reynolds was forced to his knees before Eliza. "You have no authority," he spat. "These savages attack soldiers of the United States Army." "You're no soldier." Eliza stood over him. "I found the records. You're a railroad man. A murderer." Reynolds' face twisted. "Your husband was nothing. A Negro playing soldier. His land claims worthless." "Then why kill him for the deed?" "Railroad needed that pass. His claim blocked the route." Reynolds smiled through bloody teeth. "Doesn't matter now. Your cabin's ashes. Deed burned. No proof." Eliza felt cold rage settle in her bones. The medicine pouch still hung from Reynolds's belt. She tore it free. The weight of it in her palm felt like justice within reach. "No more running," she said. "No more hiding." She raised her husband's revolver, the one she'd kept hidden since the war. Since James died. 6 bullets. One for the man who'd taken everything. Reynolds saw death in her eyes. Fear replaced arrogance. "You can't prove anything without me," he stammered. "I can testify. Make things right." Charging Hawk stepped beside her. Said nothing. Offered no judgment. Only presence. Williams coughed weakly from where he lay. "Miss Freeman, don't become what he is." The moment stretched taut as a bowstring. Eliza's finger tensed on the trigger. Everything inside her demanded retribution. Blood for blood. The oldest justice. She lowered the gun. "Bind him. We take him to the governor." Running Wolf protested in Lakota. Wanted Reynolds dead. Charging Hawk argued for Eliza's plan. The brothers faced each other, tension crackling between them. A gunshot cracked the air. Reynolds had broken free, seized a weapon from a distracted warrior. He aimed at Eliza. Running Wolf moved faster than thought, threw himself forward. The bullet meant for Eliza struck him instead. He fell hard. Blood bloomed across his chest. Charging Hawk's knife flashed. Reynolds collapsed with the blade buried in his throat. No words, no hesitation, just finality. Eliza knelt beside Running Wolf. The wound sat high in his shoulder, serious but survivable with proper care. Their eyes met. Understanding passed between them, the sacrifice recognized, acknowledged. They made camp as darkness fell. Williams drifted in and out of consciousness as Eliza cleaned his wound. Running Wolf stoically endured her ministrations to his shoulder. Charging Hawk sat nearby, his face carved from stone. Reynolds spoke truth about one thing. Eliza said quietly, "My deed is gone. Land claim with it." "What will you do?" Charging Hawk asked. Eliza looked toward the horizon where Reynolds's body lay wrapped for transport to the governor. Evidence of conspiracy. Proof of crimes against both her people and the Lakota. Finish what we started, she answered. Truth first, then justice. Running Wolf spoke in Lakota. Charging Hawk translated. My brother says you fight like Lakota, with honor. Eliza tied off Running Wolf's bandage. I fight like someone with nothing left to lose. Night deepened around them. Stars emerged like distant witnesses. Eliza clasped the medicine pouch in her palm. Its return felt incomplete. A small victory amid greater losses. The cabin gone. The deed destroyed. James's watch consumed by flames. Yet something remained. Something Reynolds couldn't burn away. Purpose. Clear as mountain air. Sharp as Charging Hawk's blade. She would see this through. For James. For herself. For people on both sides caught in currents of greed and power. Williams stirred beside her. What happens now? We ride for Cheyenne at first light, Eliza said. Tell the governor everything. And after? Eliza had no answer. After had never seemed possible before. She looked toward Charging Hawk, found him watching her. The question hung between them. After. If they survived. If truth prevailed. If justice could exist in a country built to deny it to them both. Cheyenne stood like a patchwork of ambition against the Wyoming sky. Wooden buildings lined muddy streets, businesses, government offices, saloons, a city trying to grow into its own importance. The territorial governor received them within an hour of their arrival. His office smelled of pipe tobacco and leather. A man accustomed to power but not immune to surprise studied the unlikely group before him. A black woman, a wounded soldier, 2 Lakota warriors, one with a bandaged shoulder, and a body, Reynolds, evidence wrapped in canvas. They presented their case. Williams spoke of false orders. Charging Hawk described the railroad survey parties on treaty lands. Running Wolf testified about ambushed hunters. Eliza revealed Reynolds' confession about James's murder. The governor rubbed his beard as he examined the documents they'd recovered. Land deeds, false military commissions, railroad contracts with names that made him frown. These accusations touch powerful men, he said finally. Men with connections in Washington. Eliza stood straighter. Powerful enough to murder with impunity? The governor studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod once. I'll dispatch federal marshals to investigate. Suspend all railroad activity pending review. Relief washed through Eliza. Not victory. Not yet. But a chance at justice. The first she'd known since James died. Williams was taken to the army surgeon. His wound had festered during the journey. Fever burned through him as Eliza kept vigil by his bedside. The boy had chosen truth over duty. Rare courage in any man regardless of color. My mother, he whispered between bouts of delirium. She should know. She will, Eliza promised. I'll write to her myself. Williams died 3 days later. The army surgeon shook his head as he closed the boy's eyes. Another casualty in a war without name, without purpose, except profit. Eliza washed Williams's body herself, dressed him in a clean uniform provided by the fort, folded his hands across his chest. She'd done this too many times during the war. The rituals of death as familiar as breathing. The funeral drew more attention than expected. The governor attended. Army officers. Townspeople curious about the Negro woman who stood beside Lakota warriors as the white boy was laid to rest. Afterward, the governor approached Eliza. He held an envelope sealed with wax. Private Williams's actions have been deemed heroic. Posthumous commendation. Eliza took the envelope. For his mother. Yes. And there's something else. The governor handed her a second document. Your husband's military service entitled you to land rights. As his widow, you can claim new territory. Any unclaimed parcel within the territory. The paper trembled in Eliza's hand. Possibility unfolded before her. Land of her own again. A fresh start. Thank you, she said, the words inadequate against the weight of what she'd been given. That night, She sat by campfire outside Cheyenne with Charging Hawk and Running Wolf. The brothers would return to their people the next day. Treaty negotiations would begin with the governor's office. Temporary peace purchased with blood. "What will you do now?" Charging Hawk asked. The distance between them both smaller and larger than before. Possibility hung in the air between them, unspoken. Eliza held the land claim in her hands. "I haven't decided yet." Running Wolf spoke in Lakota, his face softer than she'd ever seen it. "My brother offers you place with our people," Charging Hawk translated, "as healer." The offer stunned her. Acceptance from a man who'd once threatened her life. Evidence of how far they'd traveled together. "I'm honored," she said, and meant it. 2 weeks passed. Eliza remained in Cheyenne while awaiting news of the railroad investigation. She wrote to Williams's mother in Ohio, detailed her son's courage, his sacrifice, words that could never fill the hole his absence would leave. The reply came faster than expected, a letter in careful handwriting, a widow writing to a widow about a shared loss. Williams's mother would travel to Cheyenne to collect her son's effects, to meet the woman who'd held his hand as he died. Charging Hawk visited Eliza at her boarding house the day before the meeting. Snow had begun to fall again, winter's last gasp before spring's arrival. "My people prepare spring hunting grounds," he said. "Running Wolf asks when you will come." Eliza invited him inside, poured coffee into chipped cups. The strange domesticity of the moment struck her. Two people from worlds that never meant to touch, sharing quiet conversation. "I haven't decided," she said. "Williams's mother arrives tomorrow." Charging Hawk nodded, understanding without demanding, another quality that drew her to him. "The land claim," he said. "Have you chosen?" Eliza shook her head. The question had kept her awake many nights. Where to begin again? How to build from ashes? She met Williams's mother at the train station the next morning. Martha Williams stood straight-backed despite her journey, gray hair pulled tight beneath a mourning bonnet, eyes that had already seen too much loss. They embraced like old friends, shared grief breaking barriers that society built between them, white and black, stranger and friend. The ceremony took place at Fort Laramie. Williams received full military honors. His mother accepted the folded flag with dignity that struck Eliza to her core. "He wrote about you," Martha said afterward. "In his letters, said you showed him what courage meant." Eliza shook her head. "He showed me. My son believed in this country." Martha's voice remained steady, even knowing its flaws. "He believed it could be better." "It can," Eliza said, "if we make it so." The territorial governor hosted a small reception afterward. Martha Williams stood beside Eliza as officials offered condolences. Running Wolf and Charging Hawk arrived midway through. Their presence caused whispers among the government men. The governor approached with a man in an expensive suit. "Miss Freeman, the railroad representative wishes to speak with you." The man extended his hand. Eliza did not take it. "The company regrets the actions of Mr. Reynolds," he said smoothly. "We've authorized compensation for your lost property." "My husband's life?" Eliza asked. "What compensation for that?" The man had no answer. None that would matter. "As I understand it," he continued, "you've been granted a new land claim. The company would be interested in purchasing rights, depending on location." Martha Williams stepped closer to Eliza. Support without words. A government official entered the room, approached the governor with an envelope. Urgent correspondence from Washington. The governor read quickly, his expression darkened. "Gentlemen, ladies," he addressed the room, "I've received word that the President has authorized a review of all territorial treaties with native tribes. Pending outcome, all land transactions are suspended." The railroad man's face tightened. Charging Hawk and Running Wolf exchanged glances. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The eternal dance of progress and resistance. That night, Eliza made her decision. She invited Martha Williams, Charging Hawk, and Running Wolf to her boarding house room, spread a territorial map across the table. "I've chosen my land claim," she announced. Martha smiled encouragingly. The brothers watched in silence. 3 days later, they gathered in the governor's office. Eliza wore her best dress, faded but clean. Martha Williams stood beside her, a surprise ally. Charging Hawk and Running Wolf wore traditional garments, their presence a statement itself. The governor entered with his secretary, nodded to each person in turn. "Miss Freeman, you've filed your land claim?" "Yes, sir." Eliza stepped forward, unfolded the map with her mark upon it. "This territory." The governor examined the map, frowned. "This is contested land, between white settlements and Lakota territory." "Yes, sir." "Nearly 5,000 acres, far more than a standard homestead claim." "My husband's service record entitles me to it, as documented." The governor studied her face. "And what do you intend to do with this land, Miss Freeman?" Eliza looked toward Martha Williams, toward Charging Hawk and Running Wolf, then back to the governor. "I choose this land," she said, pointing to the contested territory. "All of it." She looked up at the stunned faces around her. "And I'm giving it back." The room fell silent. The secretary stopped writing mid-word. "Giving it back," the governor repeated. "To the Lakota people, as neutral ground, protected from development, from settlement, a buffer zone where peace might be possible." Running Wolf spoke rapidly in Lakota. For once, his voice held no anger. Charging Hawk didn't translate. Didn't need to. The emotion transcended language. "The federal government won't recognize such a transfer," the governor said. "Neither will the railroad. Then I'll hold the deed in trust, build my cabin there again, and welcome all who come in peace." Martha Williams stepped forward. "My late husband left me some money. I'd like to contribute to building that cabin, in my son's memory." Spring came to Dakota territory. Green pushed through soil where snow had lain. Eliza's new cabin rose log by log, larger than before, stronger. Martha Williams stayed through the construction. Her hands grew calloused alongside Eliza's. Lakota families brought gifts, blankets, dried meat, seeds for planting. Running Wolf visited weekly. The bullet wound in his shoulder had healed, leaving a scar that matched Eliza's spirit, marked but unbroken. Charging Hawk came most often, helped lay floorboards, built shelves for Eliza's herbs and medicines. Their hands brushed occasionally, lingered longer each time. Word spread about the Black Widow whose land stood open to all peaceful travelers, white settlers, Lakota hunters, anyone seeking neutral ground. The railroad men watched from distance, sent offers of purchase that Eliza declined. Threats followed, then acceptance, grudging and temporary. Other routes existed, other lands to consume. One evening, as summer approached, Eliza stood on her porch, watched sunset paint prairie grass gold. Charging Hawk joined her, shoulder touching hers against the railing. "Running Wolf asks when we will marry," he said quietly. Eliza's heart quickened, the question they'd circled for months. "What did you tell him?" "That I would ask when the time was right." She turned to face him. "And is it right?" "I don't know." Charging Hawk took her hand. Calloused fingers intertwined with hers. "My people have one path, yours another. This land between holds both." "Then perhaps we make a new path." Eliza's free hand touched the medicine pouch at her throat, the one he'd given her, the one she'd reclaimed. Together. Martha Williams left the next morning, returned to Ohio carrying letters for other soldiers' families, promises to visit again. The unlikely friendship between a white mother and a black widow, built on shared loss, on possibility. On the day Martha departed, a government official arrived. More papers, more declarations from distant powers. "The territory has been designated a reservation extension," he explained, "under federal protection." A victory and defeat twisted together, protection that could be withdrawn at any moment, peace built on shifting sand. That night, Charging Hawk brought his brother to dinner in Eliza's cabin, the table she'd built herself. Food grown in her garden, 3 people whose paths should never have crossed. Running Wolf spoke in English, halting but determined words. This land. He gestured toward the window, toward the territory spreading beyond. Your land now, but also our land. Yes, Eliza said. Good place for children to grow. Charging Hawk's eyes met Eliza's across the table. Possibility stretched between them. Not just survival, not just justice, but hope. Next morning, Eliza sat at her table, wrote in the journal she'd started since rebuilding, recorded names, events, truths that official histories would omit. The story of a black widow who saved a Lakota hunter, of warriors who surrounded her cabin, of choices made when facing impossible odds. She wrote until sunrise painted her walls gold, then stepped outside to face the new day. Charging Hawk waited on horseback. 2 mounts beside his own. A journey planned. More territory to see, to claim through presence. Eliza mounted her horse, felt James's watch in her pocket, recovered from Reynolds's belongings. The past carried forward, not as burden, but as foundation. The medicine pouch hung at her throat, gift and promise, protection against forces that would divide what hope had joined. They rode toward the horizon. Black widow, Lakota hunter. 2 souls claiming space in a country that had never intended them to survive, much less thrive. Together they moved forward across land that belonged to everyone and no one. Land worth fighting for, worth healing, worth making into home.